I'm Kevin, and before I got COVID, I'd been retired for how long was it? About 4 or 5 years, and I'd really got into outdoor activities like running and cycling and playing golf and this sort of thing, and quite obsessed about it, to be honest. And I'd done several marathons. I'd done some very long Ironman triathlons. I played a lot of golf. So I was very active in outdoors. I actually got COVID on the day the UK locked down. I was kind of in bed for a couple of days, felt just unwell, a bit queasy, quite run down. They were all like a really bad sort of flu. Then after about a week or so, I started to feel better. So I thought I'd go out for a run. I went for my first run and it was fine. And I got back, and within the next day, I was just completely wiped out again. And I was back to square one. And I was lying on the sofa and I was feeling ill, sick and run down. And I went through this cycle for 2 or 3 weeks of 2 or 3 days feeling rubbish, thought I was better again, went and did some exercise, and then I was wiped out. But the amount of exercise I was doing each time was getting less and less. So it would take a lot less to sort of wipe me out. Then I went with my wife on holiday, and after the first day, I was completely shattered again. And this time, I didn't have the recovery. I just felt really ill. And this went on for several days where I just couldn't even get off the sofa, felt so sick and ill. And so that then really made me very anxious and depressed as well. So I started to get panic attacks and anxiety and a whole cycle of stuff. So from being someone who was really fit and active, I got to the stage where I couldn't really go for a little walk around the garden without feeling completely wiped out. And at that point, someone suggested I looked into the Gupta program. So in terms of going on the program, I think it cheered me up, for want of a better word, because it seemed to make sense as a way forward. And you then suddenly had agency and was taking control of your own situation. So I suppose it was about a month or so after I started, I suddenly saw what's referred to as sort of glimpses of health and happiness, as it were. So occasionally you'd have moments when, I feel all right now, which hadn't happened for a few months. And then little by little, those became bigger. And I became a lot calmer about the whole situation than I had been when I'd got into a stage where I didn't know when I'd ever be better again. And the thought of not being able to go out and do the things that I love doing had become overwhelming. And then physically, again, I was pacing myself so I could go on a slightly longer walk each day, maybe an extra lamppost sort of distance rather than measured in anything longer. And this started to kick in, as I say, probably about a month. And then after about 3 months, I started to feel more normal than not normal, as it were. And then from then it actually built up quite quickly. So by then I felt 100%. I was running 50 miles a week. I was feeling top of the world. And then I hit another dip. I had a bit of an injury, and that kind of triggered the whole mindset again. And I found myself spiraling back to where I was before with exactly the same symptoms. Couldn't get off the sofa, felt ill all day. And so I then went back to the program for a second time. And again, it took about 3 months. But since then, which was the start of 2022, everything's got better. And I'm now back at, I'd say back at 100%. I've ran a marathon a couple of weeks ago. I'm doing masses of cycling. I've got some triathlons I'm training for. And mentally, I feel much better as well, because one of the big benefits of going through this thing is I've learned all about meditation, relaxation, and all the things that the Gupta program teaches, which have now become part of my life, as it were, and have enabled me, I think, to stay much more grounded and mentally more stable than I may have been before this whole thing kicked off. But I'm now, as I say, I think 100% better physically than I was, and mentally I feel stronger.